release of engineering in Star Citizen has long been touted as the thing that was going to end the solo player's ability to overpower something like a Polaris. The thought was that engineering would make it so complicating to fly, especially in combat, these larger multi-crew ships, that you wouldn't stand a chance trying to do it by yourself. Engineering's in 4.5. I'm in the PTU in Wave 1. Let's take a look and see exactly what it's actually like to fly a Polaris through some very light combat, along with the other ships and the normal day-to-day stuff you're going to do as a solo player. I've long been afraid to see exactly the impact that engineering was going to have on my day-to-day when I'm trying to fly around in ships like the Polaris. Now, it's not very normal that I would actually go out and try and seek out combat in my Polaris. I typically use it just because it has a med bed, a hangar, and a decent amount of storage. I'm not trying to go out and do PvP. I'm not trying to really do anything other than just kind of fly around in like a large cargo ship. Simply because the options don't really exist as a solo player. Once you've kind of gotten more towards that end game, really have things nice like a med bed with a decent amount of cargo. I'm sorry, but 6 SCU just doesn't cut it for me. Now, I've been afraid of engineering, and I've been afraid to purchase new ships, especially those that are kind of targeted towards multiplayer gameplay. I get it. They're targeted towards it. It absolutely makes sense. I'm not even saying that I should be able to do this. But I'm saying at the same time, I'm not going to spend money on a ship that I didn't think I was actually going to be able to fly. So, now that engineering is in PTU, and I actually have my hands on it, I can kind of happily say, honestly, I like it. I'm going to stress that this is Wave 1 of the PTU. It has bugs. It has a lot of bugs. It has a lot of very entertaining bugs. It has a lot of very frustrating bugs. But at the same time, it is Wave 1, and I absolutely respect that it should have bugs at this point. So, please look the other way on any of the issues and things like that you happen to see. Again, I expect it. I'm okay with that. Also keep in mind that being that this is only Wave 1 of the PTU, everything that you can see can still change. And quite honestly, given the scope of the changes that are put into the PTU right now, it absolutely will be rebalanced. There's no way they make this number of changes without doing some major rebalancing. The first thing I wanted to start out with was a single-seater, normally a fighter. Honestly, I wanted to do my F-8C Lightning, but it just didn't work. In fact, actually, none of the HUDs turned on. So it's a little bit unfortunate to me. Hopefully they fix that, and I'll retest it. A little unfortunate because I know how that ship actually flies and how it actually fights. So given that my F-8C Lightning didn't work, I just switched over to the Mk1 version of the Super Hornet. Now, I don't normally fly this ship. I don't know if it was the ship, changes armor, or what was going on, but I found fighting in this ship incredibly difficult. I'm guessing a lot of it is because it's not as tanky as the Lightning that I normally use, but at the same time, they've made some major changes to things like armor in the game. And I found that after about 20 minutes of the dogfight, and I'm just doing the level 2 contract here, the training simulation at that, but after about 20 minutes of not being able to kill each other, I just gave up. Now, a couple things that I will say. There is no way that I ever would have lasted 20 minutes without engineering in place. In fact, I've tried to take this ship out previously, and I normally last about a minute or two. I am not a very good fighter. PvE, PvP, anything like that. As is pretty evident by what you're seeing on the screen right now. Now, I do find it very difficult to target individual components, especially as everything is moving as quickly as it is. And I don't really think that was actually the intention on small, light fighters anyway. I think that's really when you're fighting larger ships that you'd want to actually target those components. But the theory is great anyways. Now, after about 20 minutes of fighting, I didn't notice much of a difference other than the fact I hadn't been destroyed yet. It was actually a nice thing for me. Now, I did manage to get rid of most of the enemy ships. There was just one that I just, for the life of me, I could not take out. Now, I do notice that as I took out or disabled the other ships, they weren't counted until I actually destroyed them. That's a little bit unfortunate, but I guess in some ways it does make sense, but that could just be a PTU thing as well. So, all said and done, on the lighter ships, like the light fighter, single-seater, I don't notice much of a difference. After 20 minutes of fighting, my components had some damage to it, but no fires, no overheating, no power plant issues. None of the drama that we seem to be associating with engineering. Oh, it was a huge win to me. It lasted a lot better than I normally would have.
Shield down.
And in fact, even in those times that I lost my shield, or when I ultimately tried to quantum away, shutting my shield off, I wasn't immediately destroyed like I would have been pre-engineering. That's a nice touch with the introduction of armor. And again, huge win to me. Now, the next ship I tested was the Anvil Asgard. This is a ship that I use quite regularly. I love it because it is still focused around the solo player with the ability to add another crew member, or two, actually, with engineering introduced. And I'm very familiar with this ship. It's actually one of my favorite ships in game. I love the cargo capacity. It's a great ship all around. So, a couple of things that I first noticed. The engineering console or terminal is located downstairs. Now, immediately when I started using the ship, I wished that there was one upstairs as well. Is what it is. Now, the other thing I noticed is this seems to be a pretty small console, maybe, because I actually did kind of struggle to use and read and use it a bit. Now, there's also some other issues that I found with all consoles where they started freezing and you have to look away and go back into them. I think that's probably just a PTU thing, maybe a lag thing, I'm not sure. But generally, the consoles were exactly what I've seen by other creators, where I have the ability to kind of toggle this and that and all that other stuff on and off. I'd have the ability to kind of vent certain areas of the ship, etc. Now, this is one of the reasons that I wished the engineering console was actually located upstairs. Because if you think about it, if you have an issue with some of your components and you're solo piloting this ship, now this ship should be solo pilotable. There's no reason I should need multiple people on this ship. But let's say I have a fire that starts. I would actually need to leave my seat, run through multiple doors, go down a ladder, run through at least another door, to get to the engineering console, eventually vent the area where the fire is. That's an awfully long ways to make, right? It'd be very nice if I had some sort of at least preliminary controls in a ship like this, upstairs closer to the cockpit. The other thing that I was thinking about as I was going through this is, let's say that somebody's trying to board my ship. Now with the engineering terminal, I have the ability to lock and unlock doors. So if somebody boards the ship, they're obviously going to board through the back of the ship. But to me, it's kind of a little bit strange because I'd almost have to be like, okay, well, hold on a second. Let me go run downstairs and lock the door so you can't come up. That seems odd to me. So I'm hoping that there's going to be some sort of controls or just shortcuts or something that I can do to at least lock the interior doors. I don't know what they can do here, but just feedback. Now, my real target with my testing in this was to see what it would be like day to day. Now, my day to day, I don't typically get into combat. I'm typically slinging cargo back and forth or mining and salvaging, but I'll do a separate video on those for engineering. And I tried to do some cargo runs in the PTU. It didn't work at all. There were server errors. I fell through the elevator floors numerous times. Tractor beams wouldn't work. Cargo packages disappeared. At one point, the ship and I fell through the station, and somehow the ship ended up 48 megamiles away, or whatever MM stands for, or GM. Basically, it was completely off the map out of the star system, and is actually still there to this day. And so I looked at the mercenary missions, the fighting missions, the PvE style missions, because during my day-to-day, I mean, it's not uncommon to be ambushed by players and things like that. So I figured this gives a representation. Now, PvP is definitely not PvE, so bear that in mind. But it still gives you an idea of how exactly it fights. Now, given what I saw at Evocati, I was expecting a lot more drama. Again, I left everything with the default settings, turned everything on the exact same way that I normally would have turned it on. I was watching my engineering terminal over on the left-hand side there, but it just kind of worked the way that it always has. It's worked the way that I'm used to it working, which was, again, pleasantly surprising to me. Now, yes, the fights are a little bit more difficult. They definitely last a lot longer. The time to kill is definitely increased. If your ship is disabled, it'll actually be disabled. You'll have the ability to actually go pull the power plant and fight the fires and cool things down the way that you would want to be able to do that, which is really nice. But generally in my day-to-day, I'm not losing fights all that often. So this, I think, is a great representation. And even now, when my shields are down, the Asgard felt like it was a bit more of a tank than it actually does without engineering. Again, I was quite impressed with how this is nicely integrated. I was expecting a lot more drama and having to leave the pilot seat to go fight fires in the middle of trying to sit in battle, and I just expected it to kind of ruin the game for me, to be honest. And I'm very happy to report it doesn't. It really seemed to kind of add to the game. Now, to me, these are the two kind of ships that a solo player should be flying. They're largely targeted at the solo audience, so I was happy to see really my day-to-day isn't going to be impacted that much. So yes, I'll have to do maintenance on the components and things like that you really should have to anyway. But again, it wasn't the end of the world. So very, very happy to see how well this has been integrated in. And I really hope that they don't balance away that aspect of it. Now, next up, we'll push the envelope a little bit. Now, this one's for all those haters out there. It's the subcapital, the capital class ships that really shouldn't be flyable or usable anyways, for all the practical by a solo player. But we do it anyway. We have them, they're marketed to us. Why shouldn't I do it? If I can, I'm going to. And that's just the sad reality of it. So, largely, I didn't find much of a difference using engineering with the Polaris in the solo capacity than I did previously. Now, I only had access to smaller sized bounty missions like this one, so maybe it's not a true representation. I'm not sure, but typically I'm not out there searching out combat in my Polaris anyway. I'm just flying it around as a daily driver because it has a hangar and a med bay and decent cargo storage. I use it to store my Prospector. I use it to store my Vulture so that I don't have to fly all the way back to the space station all the time and I can do more bulk loads. That's it. But if I ever did get into a scrap or a fight like this, it's nice to know that I'm still covered. So in this case, again, kept all of the default settings, left all the power plants, coolers, etc. on that should be on. Really just turned the ship on as I normally would have. Now, as you can see in this fight, PDCs still took care of everything like they normally would have. In fact, I don't think the 3 ships that had targeted me even scratched the paint on the Polaris. They never took the shields down. I almost took the shields down just to see what would actually happen, but I have the honest feeling that fighting against smaller ships like this, they probably wouldn't be able to get through the armor anyway. So, that was kind of nice to see. It depends who you are, but the moral of the story here is it really didn't make that much of a difference. Now again, in PvP or against larger battles of ships, I look forward to being able to actually try that. The PTU is not in the kind of state right now that I would want to try that in the PTU, to be honest. But maybe in the live environment, I'll actually go and try larger missions like that. They're locked for me there anyway, so it's easier having to build up the reputation. But again, the moral of the story here is engineering absolutely changes the way that we're going to fly these ships. It absolutely changes the day-to-day. but it's not as dramatic and as world-ending as I think a lot of us solo players thought it would be. I gotta give props to CIG for that one. I have to actually say, based on what I'm seeing in the PTU today, they've done a very good job. And I think it's decently balanced, maybe even a little bit too balanced. It's nice to see the time to kill being a lot higher, especially on the smaller ships.
You got them all.
It's nice that I could actually survive in a light fighter for once. But again, I gotta give CIG props. I think they did a great job on
I
engineering.
think we're good.
Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to see, if you have access to Wave 1, what your thoughts are around engineering as a solo player. And if you don't have access to the PTU yet, and you're watching all these videos from people like myself, has your opinion changed? Because I was personally afraid of engineering. I was afraid what it really meant to the game, and I thought it was going to change and end the game the way that it was. To me, I think they did a great job of balancing it for once. Anyway, this has been another video by Citizen Chaos, and I can't wait to see you in the verse.